Elvis Aaron Presley, the legendary king of rock and roll, was born into a humble family in Tupelo, Mississippi on January 8, 1935. By the young age of 21, he had already skyrocketed to fame. At 23, he had become a global icon, gracing television screens, starring in movies, and dominating the radio with his chart-topping hits. He toured the nation and even became an icon for the U.S. military, gaining international recognition. However, his sudden rise to stardom and the immense wealth that followed led him down a path of excessive indulgence, ultimately taking a toll on his health within 2 decades. On August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley, the beloved king, passed away in Memphis, Tennessee at the age of 42. It was a scorching hot day, with temperatures reaching 93 degrees Fahrenheit. Far from the glamorous spotlight, he took his last breath in one of the bathrooms of his grand mansion, Graceland, a sprawling residence spanning 17,500 square feet. Despite once being the most renowned performer in the world, with a lasting legacy, the king spent his final hours alone and likely unconscious on the bathroom floor. While many details remain unclear, let's delve into what we do know about the day Elvis Presley left us. But before we begin, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more videos and tell us who you would like to hear from next. Ginger Alden, Elvis Presley's fiancée, was the last person to see him alive and hear his last words. According to the Sydney Morning Herald, Alden was only 20 years old at the time, half the age of her partner. However, her accounts of his final words have some inconsistencies and aren't particularly significant. Elvis supposedly said either, "I'm going to the bathroom to read," or a quiet, "I won't," in response to Alden's warning not to fall asleep in the lavatory. Alden had reasons to worry since Elvis struggled with insomnia and relied on strong sedatives, as reported by the Los Angeles Times. On the morning of August 16, 1977, Elvis quietly left the bedroom for the bathroom while Alden went back to sleep. She remained asleep until the early afternoon when she discovered him lifeless on the bathroom floor. Thankfully, Elvis's legacy is defined by his 18 #1 hit songs on the Billboard charts, as highlighted by Insider, rather than his final words. Elvis Presley's young model fiancée, Ginger Alden, discovered him in a critical condition on the bathroom floor one afternoon in August. As reported by Memphis magazine, she called out his name from outside the bathroom, but when there was no response, she entered and found him lying face down on the bathroom carpet. There are conflicting versions of how Alden found him. According to Memphis magazine, Presley had been sitting in a lounging chair in the bathroom and had lost consciousness, causing him to slip out of the seat and onto the floor. However, the more commonly repeated and less delicate version of the story is that Alden found Elvis on the bathroom floor after he had slipped off the toilet due to losing consciousness. It is widely known that Presley suffered from constipation issues, which were a result of his unhealthy diet and heavy use of medications, as described by the Mirror. Alden, who was born in 1956, is an actress, model, and author. According to Elvis, he first met his future fiancée when she was just 5 years old, shortly after his return from serving in the U.S. Army in Germany. Alden is still alive today, and in 2014, she published the book, Elvis and Ginger. The Presley's fiancée and last love finally tells her story, which became a New York Times bestseller. Elvis Presley, once known for his good looks, had a tragic downfall before his death. He struggled with weight gain, insomnia, and relied heavily on a mix of medications. His diet consisted of high-calorie foods like burgers and his own unique sandwich with bacon and bananas. Surprisingly, he consumed around 100,000 calories per day. Sadly, despite being only 42 years old, he weighed over 200 pounds, suffered from high blood pressure, and had even been hospitalized for intestinal blockage. The drugs he took also took a toll on his mental health. In fact, in 1977, he made a phone call to the White House while under the influence and had a conversation with President Jimmy Carter. Carter later described Presley as being completely out of it, with incoherent sentences. He tried to help him with his paranoid thoughts and fears, but unfortunately, Presley's mental state continued to deteriorate. He made several more calls to the White House before his death, but never got to speak to the president again. Elvis Presley's choice of reading material in the bathroom on his last morning was A Scientific Search for the Face of Jesus by Frank Adams. This book delves into the Shroud of Turin, a piece of fabric believed to have covered Jesus' face and body after his crucifixion. While many experts now question the authenticity of the shroud, it continues to captivate people's curiosity. Elvis, who held on to his Christian faith throughout his life, had a deep interest in religion and even explored other spiritual practices like meditation. He embraced his Jewish heritage, as evidenced by his occasional wearing of both a cross and a Star of David. Interestingly, there were even rumors that he was contemplating a conversion to Mormonism before his untimely passing. On the morning of August 16, 1977, around 5 a.m., Elvis Presley and his fiancée Ginger Alden finally went to bed together. They had been awake for most of the night, despite Elvis trying different prescription drugs to help him sleep. At 7 a.m., Elvis took another round of pills, hoping to find some rest before his upcoming concert and tour. However, even after 2 more hours, he still couldn't fall asleep. Frustrated, Elvis left the bedroom and said his last words to Alden around 9:30 a.m. Alden went back to sleep and woke up shortly before 1:30 p.m., only to find herself alone in bed. Worried, she searched for Elvis, realizing that it had been around 4 hours since anyone had seen him alive. It's possible that he had slipped into unconsciousness during the morning, spending his last few hours alone and unable to move. After discovering Elvis Presley on the floor, Ginger Alden attempted to revive him when she realized he was in a critical condition. She recalled feeling his cold skin and trying to wake him up by slapping him. Alden mentioned that he seemed to breathe once when she turned his head, and when she opened his eyelid, she saw that his eye was blood red. She felt helpless and unable to move him. Alden then called Joseph Esposito, a close friend of Presley's who also served as his manager. Esposito tried to help Presley with basic first aid while they waited for an ambulance. Despite being rushed to the hospital, it was evident that it was too late for the singer. Elvis Presley was declared dead at 3:30 p.m. on August 16, 1977, as reported by The Express. He was taken to Baptist Memorial Hospital, not far from his Graceland estate, where the official announcement was made. However, it's probable that he had passed away much earlier, maybe even hours before. Dr. Jerry Devane, who tried to resuscitate Presley, later told News Channel 9 that the patient never regained consciousness, if he was even alive to begin with. By 4 p.m. that same day, news had spread to the public that the king of rock and roll had passed away, quickly making headlines across the nation and eventually worldwide. The site where Elvis's last efforts to be revived were made, and where his death was confirmed is no longer accessible, as the Baptist Memorial Hospital was demolished through a controlled implosion in November 2005, according to Elvis Australia. Throughout his life, Elvis had been a patient at the hospital on multiple occasions. Country Music Nation reported that shortly after the announcement of Elvis's death, a massive crowd of fans gathered outside his Graceland mansion. Some even traveled long distances just to be there, feeling a strong urge to be in the place where Elvis spent his final moments. The shock and sorrow were not limited to Graceland alone, but were felt across the nation and around the world. According to Time, there were even conspiracy theories that circulated for decades, suggesting that Elvis had faked his own death or that it was a cover-up to protect him from the mafia. These theories still persist today, with some people believing that Elvis is still alive. On the day of his death, the mayor of Memphis ordered flags to be flown at half-staff, and the news quickly spread worldwide. Despite Elvis being past the peak of his fame at the time of his passing, he remained an iconic figure. Variety reported that his death dominated the news cycle for several days before eventually fading away. However, For many devoted fans, the loss of their beloved hero would be mourned for years to come. Elvis Presley's death on August 16, 1977 was officially attributed to heart failure, as reported by Town and Country. However, it was no coincidence that the king's heart gave out. It was a direct consequence of his excessive and abusive use of various medications, particularly sedatives, barbiturates, and opiates. The toxicology report revealed that he had taken high doses of drugs like Dilaudid, Percodan, Demerol, Quaaludes, and codeine. Interestingly, Tennessee's chief medical examiner Jerry Francisco stated that even if these drugs hadn't been present, Elvis would still have passed away. Elvis had been misusing pills for a long time, especially during the last year and a half of his life. According to People, his personal physician, Dr. George Nicopolos, known as Dr. Nick, had supplied him with around 12,000 pills during that period. Dr. Nick later claimed that the pills were meant to be shared among Elvis's entourage, but it's highly likely that he knew exactly where they would end up. Several years later, the doctor faced legal trouble, with his medical license temporarily suspended and 11 felony counts of overprescribing drugs in 1981. However, he was eventually acquitted. It wasn't until 1995, almost 2 decades after Elvis's death, that the Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners permanently suspended Dr. Nick from practicing medicine. Elvis Presley's body rests at Graceland, his cherished residence in Memphis, Tennessee. His burial spot is situated between the graves of his mother, Minnie Mae Presley, who passed away in May 1980, and his father, Vernon Elvis Presley, who died less than 2 years after his son in June 1979. The official Graceland site mentions that the graves can be found in the Meditation Garden, where millions of fans from around the world have come to Graceland to pay their respects to Elvis. Elvis Presley's funeral occurred on August 18, 1977, just 2 days after his death. Although the ceremony itself was modest and attended by a small, exclusive group of mourners, thousands of Elvis enthusiasts flocked to Memphis within the following 48 hours. The crowds were so massive that, as reported by Live About, President Carter ordered 300 National Guard troops to the area to maintain order. Elvis Presley, despite his immense fame and success, was not as wealthy as one might expect at the time of his passing. His net worth was around $5 million back then, which would be equivalent to about $21 million today. This may seem like a substantial sum, but in comparison to what some Hollywood actors earn for just one project, it's not that much. So, why was Elvis worth relatively little when he died, considering his numerous hit songs, movies, and worldwide fame? The answer is simple. He spent a lot of money. From his extravagant lifestyle at Graceland to his private jets, large staff, and expensive habits, Elvis had a taste for the finer things in life. He was also generous with his friends and family, and even agreed to give his ex-wife a share of his publishing rights. Despite his modest wealth at the time of his death, Elvis's estate is now worth a significant amount. In fact, in 2020, Cheat Sheet reported that Elvis remains one of the highest-paid deceased celebrities, with his estate earning more money in a single year than he did in his final year alive.